Hello, and welcome to Fusion Writing, where building character meets creating structure. Well, this is a new month for us, and our map day, we get down to the business of our material for this week. So I'm going to send it right on over to Victoria. Victoria, take it away.
Welcome back, everyone. Okay, let's talk for just a second about this experience collection. When I first started working on my novel, what I found was the broad concepts were pretty accessible to me. I kind of knew where I wanted things to go, what themes I wanted to work with, and I kind of knew how I was going to get people to where they needed to get to, which often you know in your story. So the problem when it came to the actual writing was building up those little bits of scenes that got me from one of those plot points to the next. What I found was the most valuable tool I had in my toolbox at that time were things that I had collected from my daily life. I might observe a conversation, which we've talked about making dialogue conversation cards. I might observe something happening outside the window in the yard. It could literally be anything. And that might spark an idea. And then I could get into a scene and I could use that little bit as a jumping board that could then launch me into some momentum to get that scene written. So let's talk very specifically about what that might look like. Now, this is going to dovetail nicely with what Kathleen is going to talk about today, because I want you to look at the behavior of a character. So rather than using an observation of a thing like raindrops on a window or the sound of thunder or the way someone observes the light at a certain time of day, we're not looking at those kinds of details. Instead, we're looking at internal details for this one. So your experience collection can also be internal things that you observe. What I want you to focus on in this exercise is I want you to think about your main character, or it can be a significant character. Those are the important ones you want to flesh out first, and then those minor side characters get built around them. As you're thinking about this major character, I want you to ask yourself, what is something that they might hold back? Okay, so this is a barrier. In my book, I describe it as an inherency. It's something that stands in the way of them getting what they want. It could be an emotion. It could be something like fear. It could be uncertainty, the inability to make a decision. Any of those kinds of emotions or thought processes. I just want you to think about something that's holding that character back. Now comes the exercise. I want you to explain that in two ways. The first way, I want you to unpack what's holding them back in their actions. It's like Kathleen said in her compass yesterday when she said, you don't want to show the furrowed brow that tells your reader that the person was thinking hard. No, you want to show what's happening internally so that your reader can do the math on their own and see, wow, they're really struggling and holding back. So that's exercise number one. Just jot down a list of things. If my character is getting ready to go into the important life-threatening meeting, and she reaches for the doorknob and she pulls her hand back. She looks out the window and she reaches for the doorknob again and she pulls her hand back. That simple hesitance tells you everything that's going on inside them without ever saying she was very concerned about the meeting, right? So think about what you can show in their actions that tells the reader what's going on in their mind and what's holding them back. In the second example, I want you to use dialogue. I want you to put them in conversation with another character. Thank you, Julianne, for that prompt, by the way. Make this character talk to somebody else and show in their interaction that this character is holding something back. Now, you're cheating if you say, but I can't tell you that. It's too important. You can't tell me that they're holding back. I want you to show me in the exchange. Maybe in the course of the conversation, the character starts to speak and stops and turns away. Now that's an action, but it's also not speaking what's on their mind. That counts as dialogue. I'll let you slide on that one. But just think about how can you use their words to show that they're holding something back. Those are your exercises. So dive into your experience collection, look inside that character, and decide through actions and words, how can you show your reader without telling them what's going on inside them. With that, I will throw it to Kathleen for a little look at modesty.
All right. And thank you, Victoria, for these great exercises and for your opening the package, modesty. Yes, that's our character trait for the month of July. And modesty, we're going to think of it first of all in terms of how it kind of gets used in normal conversation. Normally, if we think someone is modest, they cover themselves up. And if somebody's immodest, they're going to, and that's one of the things that we think of as modesty in our world. How flamboyant and that they throw their boa around and tickle somebody's nose with it, you know. But we have much, much more nuanced, much finer elements on it when we look at it as a character trait, because what I just described were behaviors, and they are indeed behaviors that come out of the character trait of modesty. But modesty has a lot more power than how much fabric the person includes in their garment. Modesty has to do with more than anything else, attention, and a type of attention. What kind of attention and how much attention does your character need or want? If your character walks into a room and is desperately in need of all eyes being on them, that is going to be an issue with modesty. If your character doesn't know why they went to the party once they've got there and they're backing away, don't anybody notice me, that is also a problem with modesty. Why? Because modesty is a balance trait. And that means there's two ways to have problems. You can have a problem with over desiring attention, and you can have a problem with shunning attention. And they're both problems with our character trait of modesty. So once you realize that modesty has everything to do with seeking attention seeking behavior, now you can understand why that bikini that took only a quarter of a yard to sew became kind of a standard for modesty, the lack of it, shall we say. It's because why did your character choose to put on such a skimpy outfit? Well, obviously to gain attention. Now we understand what's behind it. See, we have the whole different layer. We have the layer of this, and then we have the layer of the motivation, far deeper, far more powerful. And then the beauty of it is you don't even have to tell your reader the externals. All you have to do is set up the situation. Your reader will invent a far more detailed, far more personal picture in their own mind, far more engaging with your book than if you tried to describe it for them. And that is the root of the power of the character traits. They're deep, they're innate, they're about actual human motivation. So when you touch those motivations, you communicate the emotion in far more effectively and far more detail than you ever could possibly do by laying it out in words. Victoria, do you have anything to add to this?
Oh, this is fantastic. So, see how nicely that fits together? The first thing that came to mind when you mentioned the bikini is I thought to myself, that is a great example. Because think about that for a second. How can you spin the state of modesty and what that says about your character based on what they choose? Isn't it just as flamboyant and showy and attention seeking whether you choose a bikini or you choose an extremely lavish fur coat? It says two different things about your character, but it still speaks to that sense of modesty. So guys, this is so rich. If you dive into this and start unpacking where those things come from and how they play out of your character, you don't ever have to say your character was a little sexy. You can show all of those behaviors just in the way that you treat it on the page. So you get all kinds of writing this time. I challenge you to play with this stuff. And then I suspect that Kathleen can tell you where you can come and share with us as we play over in our community on LiLLiPub.org.
Yes, come on over to LiLLiPub because we do have a chance over there to play with our writing. We have a whole fusion writing community over there. And on Saturdays, we have a wonderful Zoom call where we get to post our writing. We go over each other's writing. It's a wonderful opportunity. And there's a circle for character traits over on LiLLiPub. And you will get a weekly assignment. If you come over there, you'll get a weekly writing assignment and 2 Zoom call opportunities, one earlier in the day, one later in the day on a Wednesday, so that you can have a chance to talk about the character traits, talk about how they work, and post a little exercise where you play with writing about the character traits. So come on over to LiLLiPub. It's your home away from home for writing and all things character and structure. Fusion writing
Awesome.
on LiLLiPub. See you next week. Bye-bye.